Good evening. I'm Matt Morton, and tonight I'm going to explain to you about the Missouri court processes. First, I'll go over the arrest and complaint procedure, the preliminary hearing, grand jury, the arraignment process, the trial, capital cases, pre-sentencing investigation, sentencing, parole hearing, and lastly, the appeals process. This all starts with the crime. The crime is committed against a person who violates state laws, and thus this is a crime against the state of Missouri. The county prosecuting attorney usually handles the case. In a criminal case, the state has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant has committed the alleged crime. Defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty and never have the burden of proving their innocence. This all stems off an arrest. Once a formal charge has been filed, usually in the form of a complaint, the prosecuting attorney can go to the judge and obtain an arrest warrant. This arrest warrant will allow local law enforcement personnel to arrest the person named in the warrant on the suspicion that he or she has committed the crime set forth in the complaint. On from there, the first step of the court procedure would be the preliminary hearing. Felony cases begin with this, and it's somewhat of a mini trial in which testimony is taken under oath. The defendant may waive the preliminary hearing if he wishes. If the defendant does choose to proceed with the preliminary hearing, the judge, the defendant, the defendant's attorney, the prosecutor, and any victims or witnesses subpoenaed will attend the preliminary hearing. At the preliminary hearing, the prosecutor will present evidence to show the judge that there is probable cause to believe a crime has been committed and that the defendant at hand has committed this crime. The defense attorney can cross-examine the state's witness and produce any evidence that they deem necessary to prove the innocence of their defendant. If probable cause is established, the judge will order the defendant to be bound over for trial in circuit court. If the defendant waives the preliminary hearing, the case usually will be sent to circuit court for trial. If the judge decides that probable cause has not been established, the court dismisses the case and the defendant is released. This may also occur if witnesses fail to appear to testify. If probable cause is not found, the prosecutor can later file the complaint again against the defendant based on the same crime, but the prosecutor will typically present additional evidence to prove probable cause. At any point during the prosecution, the prosecutor may decide to voluntarily dismiss the charges. This is called noli prosecute. On from there, you would go into the arraignment process. This is the first formal presentation of the charges to the defendant. At that time, the defendant must enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Also, the judge can raise or lower the defendant's bond at this time. The arraignment is open to the public, and in larger counties, an assistant prosecuting attorney is assigned to the case after the arraignment. The court, with the input from the prosecutor and the defense attorney, sets a trial date for hearing dates on pre-trial motions. The trial date may be changed because of continuances or other court cases on the docket for that day. Next will be the trial. A jury usually is selected the first day of the trial, and this is a process known as voir dire. The prosecutor then must make an opening statement. The defense attorney can either make his opening statements or he can wait until after the state has presented its evidence. After the prosecutor presents the state's case, the defense may, at its discretion, present its evidence. Once all evidence is heard, the court reads written instructions to the jury. The instructions state the law that applies to the case. The prosecutor then makes the closing statements, the defense attorney and its closing statements, and the prosecutor then may make additional remarks. The jurors then retire to deliberate. They are required to decide whether the state has presented evidence to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant has committed each element of the charged crime. The jurors must unanimously agree on either guilt or innocence. If they cannot, the trial will end in a hung jury or a mistrial, and the case may be tried again. If the defendant is found not guilty, the state is barred from ever retrying him or her on that same charge. This is known as double jeopardy. If the defendant is found guilty, the prosecutor and the defense are allowed to present additional evidence to the jury on the issue of sentencing. Once the evidence concludes, the judge reads further instructions to the jury, which the jury retires to deliberate once more and deem an appropriate sentence. If a defendant has prior convictions, the judge will impose a sentence without the jury's recommendation.